Hello and welcome to Democrats Discuss. My name is Joe McNamara. I'm the chair of the Rhode Island Democratic Party, and I'm very pleased to host this, our inaugural show of the Democratic Party. Today, we are going to be talking about state, local, and national policies as they relate to Democrats. 2015 has been a very, very busy year where we have laid out our plans for the 2016 presidential election and our delegate selection process. We hope to introduce you to many of the policymakers, elected and appointed officials that are associated with the Democratic Party during these next several months. Today, we are going to be dealing with some local issues. Former Speaker of the House, Tip O'Neill, once said that all politics are local. And being an elected state representative, I have to admit that I agree with Speaker O'Neill 100%. People are concerned about their local schools, the conditions of their roads, their cities and towns, their taxes, and that is why it is my pleasure today to introduce the President and first Vice President of the Rhode Island Democratic City and Town Chairs Committee. And we'll start with President Michael Burk, welcome, and First Vice President Bob Johnson, welcome.
Thank you.
And Michael, why don't we start with you? Could you tell us a little bit about your organization and your role in it?
Certainly. Thanks, Joe, and thank you, Chairman, for inviting us as your inaugural guests and for your leadership in the House and for your constituents over the past 20 years. You've done a great job, and as the party chair for nearly the past year and through last fall's elections as well, we, under your leadership, made huge successes that are too numerous to count.
Wow, very impressed, Mike. So should we just quit while we're ahead? I should enter my resignation right now, total sweep, right? Thank you very much. Yeah.
You're welcome. So the Democratic City and Town Chairs Association is what the name suggests. We're an association of the 39 city and town Democratic Town Committee chairs throughout the state. We have about 25 members who are active. There are a few committees who need some help in getting new members, so they're not as active, and there are some, depending on what's going on during the year. Summertime certainly is a harder time to get people involved with a lot of things, so we wax and wane, but generally about 25 to 30 members are very active with us. And our role is to really help promote the principles of the Democratic Party throughout our communities, and with our committee chairs within our association to help them with their leadership within their committees with whatever they need that we can provide or connect them to, and to also work with candidates for local, state, and national offices, Democratic candidates, to help get them elected.
Very interesting. Now, Bob, I know that you play a very visible role in this organization. Could you tell us a little bit about the history?
Well, I still consider myself a rookie. I've been involved for about 10 years now, so I'm still learning. But it's clear that by each city and town committee faces the same difficulties and the same issues throughout the state. So by bringing our group together, we get to share that knowledge, to benchmark how we've solved issues or concerns in our community, and really bring what I think bring the Democratic Party together, because we all work as a group. We all support one another when there's an issue, and it's really got into the point where it's a good partnership between all of the communities.
Bob, is every city and town represented in your association?
We have a few that we need to work on, that some of the Democrats need to put their heads up high and admit who they are in some communities. But a lot of our group are very active, very supportive, and they're there every month at our meetings without fail.
And Mike, with the city and town committees, Can anyone attend those meetings, or is it invitation only? How does that work?
So generally at the local level within the city and towns, I know for our purposes in Tiverton, we open up to any Democrat to attend. We are considered elected officials because we do have to run biannually in local elections to be committee members. And if there are openings that are unfilled after that election, then the chair of that respective committee, there's an appointment process that can be made. The numbers involved on each city and town committee are different depending on the size of the community. My committee is about 30 to 35, where the city committees are much, much larger. They're broken down into wards, so there are opportunities in the city level to be involved in the wards as well as the city committee. And so any Democrat can attend. We don't necessarily open it up to non-Democrats because we are a Democratic committee. And we welcome people to come and voice their opinion, and we also try to find ways to involve them that doesn't require you to be an actual voting committee member.
I love that, the huge tent of the Democratic Party. Now, Bob, Mike mentioned wards. In the urban, suburban communities like Warwick, our ward committees, Democratic ward committees, are in many cases very, very active. In the city of Providence, the 5th Ward is huge. Once we get out into the rural areas like West Greenwich, is the ward structure the same, or is it a little bit different?
It's a little bit different. I mean, we have out in Exeter and in West Greenwich just one committee. We don't have wards, so it's one overall Democratic town committee, and they are very active. I can tell you that my committee in Exeter, we have about 25 members, wow. And there are 25 opinions in that room when we meet on a monthly basis, and I think that's good for the community because we really debate the issues that go on in our community, and we fight hard for them out there.
And Michael, how do you interact with the state Democratic Party? What is the, how do you articulate your needs and your issues?
So one way is that we are, each of our chairs are members of the State Democratic Committee. We're voting members of the committee. That happened, I think, about 8 years ago that we were at it as members. So in that regard, we have full membership in the committee itself. But there's a lot of interaction with your staff. I will reach out to Annie or Ann on different issues that I want to become aware of or that my members want information on. I'll reach out to you with it. One of the ways that I found very helpful, and I know that our members have found helpful, and we've discussed about doing some trainings, is the voter database that the party has access to and provides access to the local committees for. And for local committees, that access is important not just during election cycles for offices, but also we, for example, have a financial town referendum where our town budget is approved every year by voters. So we need access to it on an annual basis for that, for local issue-oriented campaigns. So getting people trained locally on how to use that effectively will be very helpful as well.
Very interesting. Now, Bob, how do you interact? We have a presidential election coming up, Democratic Party. I believe we have 4 candidates now. I think the Republican are up to 20, or there's, 3 elected governors that aren't running for president that are Republicans. It gets larger and larger all the time. I know daily I receive emails and, in some cases, a couple of text messages from our Democratic presidential candidates. Are they interacting with our city and town chairs as well?
Oh, absolutely. They reached out to us very early. We've gotten the same emails and text messages. We've been invited to several home dinners for different candidates. So they're very active with us. They've reached out to us early in the campaign because I think they realize also that we provide the boots on the ground. We have the membership out there that we interact with very closely. So it's important for them to get their message to us early so that we can get our people engaged.
Very interesting. One of our objectives in this coming election cycle is to engage more of our younger Democrats. Today, the Providence Journal released some figures, and the 18 to 24-year-old segment of our voting population was very low in terms of numbers in our last election. We know that during presidential elections, traditionally, there are larger turnouts among all voters, and we expect a larger turnout this year. However, with that being said, how do we better engage and especially the great energy that our young Democrats have? Mike, any ideas?
So I think one of the things that I want to commend you and your staff for pulling this together back in, I believe, June, was the convening you had, the cocktail hour get-together that you had for young Democrats in Providence. I think that was very successful. We had a large number, I'm not sure how many, probably 50 to 60 anyway, young Democrats in the room with other elected officials, some of our newer elected officials and younger elected officials as well. And I know I connected to some folks who I've also now connected out to their city and town chairs who want to be involved, some young people, and they're coming, some of them are coming to our meetings. So that's one way. I think another way, and I know we're trying to improve this for the association. I know the party uses social media extensively, but really improving how we engage young people with the various social media, Facebook, Twitter, et cetera, as well as our website, although I know that's kind of archaic now. Websites are old news in many respects. And finding alternative ways of bringing groups together. So we have our monthly meeting. Sometimes we'll have a speaker that might be of interest. This month we're having Seth Magaziner, General Treasurer. So I think that's a bit of a draw for some of these young people who are coming. But most young people don't want to come to a business meeting, hear us talk, and then eat pot roast or whatever. You know, they want to, you know, maybe come to a club, a bar, you know, over drinks, be able to mingle with people, maybe a few short speeches, those types of things. And then really identify other ways that they can become involved, not just in their local committee, but in their local community through their local committee. So we're always looking for people within our committees who can help us ask our town councils, our city councils to fill various local groups, planning boards, zoning boards, recreation commissions, other building projects that the schools might have and the like. So those are good foundations for young people to get involved locally and then build from there if they want, or if that's how they want to give back to their community, just continue to do that. So we're finding other ways to engage like that too.
And does that change in a rural setting, getting young people engaged, Bob?
No, I think it's the same effect. We need to, you know, set up the types of meetings that they want to come to. We need to reach out through social media to get the message to them, because that's where they get all their information. As Mike said, it's not necessarily the websites anymore. It's got to be something that's really instant. That's why they're always looking at their phones. They always have their information coming and going. So we need to find a way to tap into that, because we need their energy. We really do.
Now, I got a kick out of when we had our Young Dems reception. It's the first reception that I've been to where they had a selfie booth that was utilized. So I thought that was very cool. Yep. And the energy that the young Democrats bring to the party, especially our young electeds. Last week, Representative Shelby Maldonado was in the news with her great legislation for improving conditions for women in the workplace that are expecting. Aaron Regenberg, representative from the East Side, his initiative to increase the base pay for waiters and waitresses by 50 cents for the next 2 years, first increase in 20 years. A lot of the really progressive ideas that move the Democratic Party start with young people. And an example that took place in my community, Representative Bennett's legislation that mandates that knock-on be available in our secondary schools. Young people came forward and approached myself and Representative Bennett, and they said, this has the ability to save lives of teachers, parents, and students, and it's something that should be moved forward very articulately. Great idea, and that legislation was passed and signed by the governor. But as I mentioned to reporters, I give the credit to young members of our community for going forward. Very interesting. So I think as we move forward with looking at where the Democratic Party is going, Mike, you mentioned the technology and the use of technology, specifically the voter files. Do you find that candidates in your community have the technological ability to utilize that training as they go forward?
I think more and more. I think certainly those running for House and Senate do. Those running for local offices don't necessarily. So helping them understand how to use, I mean, they know how to use computers and like, but how to use the database, how to slice and dice it for walking lists and the like, how to use it to make phone calls as well, which I've not even used yet. So I think there is a need for them to be able to learn that, and I think that's one of the advantages we as a party and our committees in our association want to help the party bring to the table for local candidates. One of the challenges in many of the local communities, I know Tiverton is one, is many of us have nonpartisan elections. So that takes the eye off of the Democratic and Republican parties. Some people think that that's good. I actually have found it very hard then to recruit people for local positions, whether it's an elected position or a non-elected position. So I think by having that tool and offering it to candidates we want to support locally, that shows them that, oh, this is a reason why I should be, I mean, there's many reasons to be a Democrat, but why I should more closely align myself with my local committee and the like in the party.
Very interesting. And Bob, I think of some of the issues facing candidates in rural areas, and one of the things that as a candidate who has walked and banged on virtually every door in my district approximately 10 times, and I try to remain very visible, one of my nightmare scenarios would be campaigning out in West Greenwich, where I have the voter address and you have those half-mile driveways, hoofing up those driveways in 90-degree heat, knocking on the door, and no one's home. What kind of techniques do candidates use to meet voters and get their message across in the rural areas?
Well, obviously for us, that voter list that's supplied by the state party is very important because we want to make sure that we target all the right voters to go see them. But again, you've got a plan. You've got to have somebody driving you. You do not walk out in Exeter or West Greenwich because it will take forever to get it done. So a lot of times, and a lot of the federal delegation comes out and spends time with us, and you know, we plot and plan in the areas that we do in the neighborhoods, and with vehicles, we manage to get to everybody's door that wants to see us.
So it really has to be more of a real coordinated effort to obtain, to get that voter contact.
Yeah, you just can't decide some Saturday morning that you're going to go knock on doors. You want to make sure that you're well planned and pointed in the right direction, because before you know it, you'll be out there for 8 hours and totally lost.
That's interesting.
Yes.
Because that's exactly what we do in the urban and suburban areas. We go out on a Saturday morning or between 4, 6:30, 7 o'clock, never when the Patriots are playing. Correct. And knock on doors and meet voters. You can't beat it, right. But I was thinking about that. It has to be more difficult. A few years ago, I spoke with a state representative from New York who had the most expensive campaign for state representative in the nation, $6 million. And he said, I said, $6 million? How do you raise that kind of money? And he said, well, the state party helps me out a little bit. But he said, my district is only 3 blocks. I said, 3 blocks? That'd be easy to walk. But he said, obtaining the attention of my voters is very expensive. So rural West Greenwich is not as bad as that, but certainly it's a different style of campaigning.
Certainly.
Well, it's been very interesting. I want to thank you both for joining us today. You've given our viewers some insight into how our cities and towns interrelate and work with the state and national Democratic Party. I would like to let the viewers know that on our next show, we are going to have Representative Marvin Abney of Newport and Middletown, who is the chair of our affirmative action community. And Representative Abney has worked very hard on putting together the Rhode Island Democratic Party Affirmative Action Plan that has recently been accepted by the National Democratic Committee as the standard for helping us select a diverse representation of delegates for the 2016 convention. We will also be joined by Representative Grace Diaz, who is the vice chair of the Rhode Island Democratic Party. And Representative Diaz is not only the vice chair, but a very successful state representative. And Mike, I know that your involvement with DCF, you worked with Representative Diaz on many issues, but particularly her legislation 3 years ago that reduced our school suspension rate by 35% by some very simple suggestion, and that is that you cannot suspend students strictly for truancy. So that's going to be an interesting show as we move forward. With that, I would like to invite the viewers to feel free to contact the Rhode Island Democratic Party. Please visit our website. Our office is located at 200 Central Boulevard in Warwick, and please just stop by and say hello. It's been a pleasure, and the Democratic Party will continue to work for you. Thank you for joining us for Rhode Island Democrats Discuss.